Welcome back to my 25 Days of Christmas Marathon. Today, we're going to be talking about Jingle All the Way. With Jingle All the Way, unfortunately, I'm not its biggest fan. Maybe it's because I didn't really grow up on it, but in the same breath, I would be lying if I said it wasn't a lot of fun in its own way. With that said, that's mainly it. It's a bit of fun because it's not very good, nor have many commendable traits, but let's unpack it anyways, starting with the positives. At its core, it's a cute, over-the-top Christmas family film, but when you dig a little deeper, this film was more so made for the adults. It has some pretty dark messages about greed and about the dark times and troubles parents go through during the holidays. Even though the film is extremely silly, it definitely has its nods towards the adults watching, showing us that they know what most parents go through, where they're willing to go through nearly anything for their kids, and with that, it certainly gets credit from me. It can very easily come off as a brainless Christmas film, but these underlying messages help keep it afloat and almost grounded it sometimes. To kind of backpack off of that point, even if you don't recognize the messages throughout, whether you're a kid or simply just don't clock the notion, the film is a breeze to get through. Sure, it has tons of scenes that sometimes don't really make much sense or can be a little too over the top, but its fast pace helps it keep it to be easy to digest and to help keep the audience engaged all the way through, especially if you take it for what it is and not overthink it. Somehow or another, we've already arrived at my last positive, and that's with the characters. Although Arnold isn't really meant for these type of roles, even after tackling them numerous times with other titles like say Kindergarten Cop, you can definitely tell he tries here. He definitely starts off as the character you don't really want to root for, but about halfway through, oddly enough, I found myself rooting for him and wanting him to win. For me anyways, you can almost sense that he's having a good time in the role, given a fairly charismatic performance, although his arc is extremely predictable. It's one of those style of characters where you've seen it many times before, so you know exactly what's going to happen, but for what it is, it's done pretty nicely. One of the other characters I feel definitely deserves a shout is Sinbad as Myron the letter carrier. His character is definitely a bit unhinged and tough to get a grasp on, but doesn't that basically go for the entire film and everybody else included? There are some points where he's likable and helps out Arnie, but then there's other points where he's almost intolerable. Although his character doesn't really steal the show, I thought he was a good addition along with the message he brought to the film, where if everything happens the right way, he'll do whatever he can to get what he wants. Now unfortunately for the negatives, it's sort of pick your poison. Do you want to start with the story, the characters, the script, the cheese, or the effects? Alright, I know you guys can't choose, so let's start with the story itself. Unfortunately, I honestly hated this movie when I first watched it a couple years ago, but I will be honest in saying I didn't hate it this time around, but calling a spade, it's just not very good. For starters, the storyline is very formulaic with a super common arc and resolution to the film. You can tell from the first 15 minutes where the film is going to be, and on top of that, after the 20-minute mark or so, it gets even worse, almost feeling like it's two different films at times, where it comes off as too over the top to the point that it's almost not passable. To kind of backpack onto that, sure, the film moves by at a brisk pace, but at what cost? Because on the same token, it seems like they shove countless silly and almost pointless bits in to make the plot facilitate and to hit that 90-minute mark. My next issue is with the characters. Arnie is definitely charismatic, but truth be told, and everyone knows it by now, he just isn't really meant for this sort of role. Kindergarten Cop was a touch better, but that film showed that he isn't really meant for this type of role and more for action films like say Predator or Commando. On top of that, when Arnie isn't stinking up the place, the side characters are. Again, they definitely try, but they're so silly and so disposable, but I'd be willing to bet a lot of that's due to the writing and the direction, which brings me to my next issue, the script. The screenplay is super flat and on the nose, treating the audience like we're 6 years old, showing us something they literally just explained. I know this was more meant for kids' enjoyment, but there's no reason to spoon feed us. Personally, I feel like a lot of the monologues and dialogues between two characters were pretty annoying and even cringy at times, where a lot of the film called for rewrites. And my last big issue, amongst many nitpicks, is the technical aspects like the editing and the effects. You could tell there was a lot of reshoots going on, where things seemed like they were oddly pieced together, along with these really choppy and snappy edits that just seemed like they were misplaced on too many occasions. Then when it came to the effects and the green screen work, I understand that the film was made in the 90s, on top of it clearly being on a low budget, but there are some effects in here, really most of them, that look like they came out of a cereal box. The usage of the hangers and wires was a bit overdone, where it overstayed its welcome when present, capturing the shot for a little too long, along with completely noticeable green screens that were super fuzzy that you couldn't help but notice it was a green screen. Again, I know this was a low-budget film, but you'd think they would try to keep the effects out as much as possible, but it seemed like they did the complete opposite and throw in as much as they could. Overall, even though it may not seem like it, I can admittedly say that I enjoyed this film a little bit more than I did the last time. But to be fair, when you're at the bottom, there's only one way to go. Jingle All the Way gets a 3 out of 10 from me. Let me know what you think of Jingle All the Way in the comments below, and let me know what film you'd like to see me review next. See you guys in the next one.